Hello again. In the 1920s and 30s, anthropologists in America like Ruth Benedict and Franz Boas were devising two malignant ideologies which have today been adopted by the intelligentsia of almost every Western country. These are equalitarianism and cultural relativism. I've dealt frequently and at length with what has now become the equalitarian dogma and have as a result been roundly condemned by left-wing types and banned by YouTube. I want to talk today about the other scourge of the modern Western world, cultural relativism. This holds that no way of life or set of beliefs is better than any other, and that it is arrogant and wrong for Britain or America to assume that liberal democracies which have painstakingly built up over the centuries, together with all the music, art, literature, science and philosophy produced by those civilizations, is of more value than what pygmies in the rainforest of the Congo have achieved or the Australian Aborigines. Why should Bach's ability to produce the Brandenburg Concerti be seen as in any way superior to an African banging a stick on a hollow tree trunk? What is so special about the works of Tolstoy or Dickens that makes them any more worthy than the traditional tales of the pre-literate Zulus of South Africa? Why should Plato and Socrates be taught at school instead of what Muhammad said? Why should the rule of law be preferred to the rule of the toughest and most violent? To use a modern expression, they are all equally valid. Now, the strange thing is that we all of us know instinctively that this is a lot of nonsense. A society where we are all free under the law and with courts which protect us from arbitrary arrest is very much better than one where we can be killed at random by men from the next village. We know very well that Plato's ideas about the nature of the world are of far greater value to learn about than the myths of the Eskimos. Going to church on Sundays to hear a man tell us to love our neighbours is surely better than attending a ceremony where a man's chest is ripped open and his heart plucked out and offered to the sun god. Here is the difficulty. We all know very well that this is true, and that British and American culture is of inestimably greater value than anything produced south of the equator. But even to say such a thing these days is to invite accusations of racism. In schools and universities, in churches and government offices, in the police and the health service, everybody is now compelled to deny that there is anything especially worthwhile about our own traditional way of life. And we have to pretend that rap music is as artistically valid as one of Chopin's preludes or a symphony by Mozart. We must agree that the daubings of an illiterate forest dweller are in the same league as Rembrandt and Vermeer. This is why children in primary schools today are more likely to be taught African drubbing than they are English folk songs, and why Christian prayers are no longer said before school begins. It is the reason that multiculturalism has become so popular. This is why the BBC now uses pidgin English on its website. Why should we regard standard English as being in any way more desirable than the broken English used as a lingua franca in parts of equatorial Africa? Instead of prizing the values which are the crowning glory of Western civilization, we have to pretend that they are worth no more than anybody else's ideas. A half-naked shaman dancing around a fire in the Brazilian jungle? Who's to say that this man's ravings are not just as important as the writings of Schopenhauer and Kant? Are his insights really inferior to those produced by Machiavelli? Might it not be that a Yoruba witch doctor's insights into the nature of the world are as profound as those of Isaac Newton or Albert Einstein? This is where cultural relativism leads us, into darkness. Instead of having the confidence to build on the great achievements of the past, which have their foundations in European and American civilization, we turn back and reject the insights of the Enlightenment. Reason is displaced by insight, logic by feeling, and science by superstition. We are victims of what is sometimes called treason de cœur, a French expression meaning treason of the intellectuals. In other words, we have been betrayed by those whom we thought could be trusted with our heritage. Ordinary people have never chosen to reject their own civilization and culture and substitute primitive and debased systems of thought and ethics. It has been done on their behalf by university professors and governments who seem to pander to minorities while ignoring the majority. The hour is late, but I do not wholly despair of halting and perhaps even reversing this trend. This is part of the reason for this channel, to provide a meeting place for those who are discontented with what the intellectuals are up to.